Yo, what's good, people? It's your boy Nova, episode 4, the Flip Life Lockdown Show. Ben's just hollering at me. Let me see what he's saying, if he's ready to join, yeah? He said he's going to be 5 minutes late, like it was yesterday. So yesterday we had a mad debate with a whole bunch of people involved. It was supposed to kind of be about 5G and all the crazy conspiracies. But I guess we talked more about vaccines, and it was less crazy than I thought. We got heated at moments, but everyone really heard each other out and all of that. And we could have just gone on talking for ages and ages. So we're just gonna do part 2. So I've got a couple people waiting in. I'm just gonna throw them straight in, man. Oh, that's man like Gleam. Let's just see. A couple people joining. I don't know if my background's gonna get the video banned today. After the David Act censorship that's been going on.
Madness. Mic check 1. Can you hear the Gleam?
What's going on, Gleam?
Yeah, you cool, bruv. How's things?
Not too bad, man. Did you catch much of it yesterday?
I was out in it. I was out on missions, on my essential missions. Yeah. Oh, you're cutting out.
Oh, I'm cutting out, yeah? I hope not.
I heard your mouth. Oh, I saw your mouth move, but nothing.
Oh, that's not good. That's not good.
Yeah, no, now you're clear. You're clear now. Either way, I was out on missions, but did go back and watch it. So, yeah, no, I will big you up. Seriously, you and Genesis Elijah are seriously blowing my head away. We're just getting all top people on here, having a good discussion and loving it.
Yeah.
All right, man. I'm getting some clickety boo.
Someone's joined up. I don't know if that's Abby or Jacob.
Yo.
So I don't even know where we pick up today, man. Like, because
Can I just say, like, before we continue, see when someone starts talking, I think you should just mute everyone else until the person's finished talking.
I was thinking about that, but it's a lot of effort, and I think it was okay. Like, it wasn't too bad. Like the talking over each other and stuff. I watched it back, and it wasn't too bad.
You sure about that?
There's moments where people talk over each other where they're all trying to talk, but everyone kind of like let one of those people talk each time, and it was all right. Unless I have some kind of like raise your hand like system, I don't know.
If you want to talk.
We'll see.
I tried a little bit of that yesterday, putting the old finger up there when I needed it, but I think.
How did you feel about yesterday, Jacob?
I thought yesterday was it was interesting actually. It was interesting to see some points of view. I think it worked. I think it worked in terms of the people were respectful enough. There was a couple of moments where it was like and everybody going mental and just trying to jump in. But I think people are respectful enough to just sort of sit and wait their turn, you know?
Yeah. Is Gleam, you still with us? I want to hear this. I think we might have.
Yeah, man. No, I'm here. So, I'm just rolling.
What would your response be? I mean, like content-wise, to any. Have you got anything to respond to anything that was said yesterday?
I'd say add more than anything. I'd say yeah, but both points of view were put across, and I don't know. I'm a Libra by trade anyway, so I'm gonna go smack down in the middle. But I like the points that Jacob brought up about. Touched on the knowledge of what I would like to elaborate on is the jumping of the electron's energy state and how it ionizes and what actual radiation is, and understood it from the conspiracy side of there is unknowns, and there is always unknowns. No one knows anything for certain, but either way, I mean, I would just love to explain just for 2 minutes of where all that actually come from, where humankind, where science actually figured out about the absorption and emission of radiation, of things emitting a radiation. So if you call with me, I'll just spend 1 minute. All it was is back in the days, 1925, I think it was, Einstein done the photoelectric effect, of which he got a Nobel Prize for. What he was doing was his actual result of that experiment was that light come in discrete packages called quanta, or as we know them today as photons. Okay, and it's an age-old argument going right the way back to the Greek days of, is wave a particle or light? Sorry, a particle or wave. Apologies. Yeah.
Both.
Yeah, it's exactly that. That is what's found since Einstein. He actually set off the quantum side of things. I mean, Thomas Young done his slit experiment before him, but the photoelectric effect was really when science started working into the absorption and emission of light in particular materials. Now, what actually happened from there is 1933, it was Paul Dirac, one of our boys, a UK guy, top scientist actually, one of my favorites. He solved the wave equation, Schrodinger's wave equation. Won't go into that or anything like that, but what he basically done is he said, well, wait there, if this is the case, there's a thing called symmetry. Again, we won't go into that, but he come up with a formula that resolved this particular equation of not whether light is a wave or a particle, but how emission and absorption works. And I think that was in 33, and then in 36, Carl Anderson. And it was all research into atomic energy. Okay, so what they actually found, Carl Anderson actually first found the positron, which is the anti-electron. And what they found is that certain materials absorb certain frequencies, like colors. Okay, so if you fired a certain light through a particular object, boron or something, out the other end, certain spectra, so certain frequencies, pinpoint frequencies in some cases, were actually stripped out the other side, albeit the rest of the light was let through. So
spectral analysis.
Exactly that. And then what happened is they figured out, obviously, there is always a percentage of absorption of the material and emission out the other side. And what then gave birth was virtual photons. And these were the exchange particles, basically born of the quantum field. And that is basically how we know about radiation, as in radiation is not something that's like a ray that comes and burns you. It's more of a frequency will touch your skin and it will do one of two things. Well, one of three things, should I say. It will reflect, absorb, or go through it. And there are particles theorized, which are like neutrons and whatnot, that go right through you. Sorry, neutrinos, not neutrinos.
Yeah, neutrinos. Yeah,
misspoke. But yeah, that is the whole case of it. Is how does the skin or how does a material accept some sort of power? Now, it's not down to the actual argument was never, and I don't think you guys, Jacob, denied this, but the argument was never, does it have an effect? The argument is how much of an effect that has. Yeah, and if you look at a mobile phone, I mean, a mobile phone is 2 to 3 watts of energy. Yeah. So either way, the actual, again, the absorption, I will say one thing that you said yesterday, that it's impossible to actually kill someone or something like that. It was along the lines there. And I disagree. I mean, just to give you my background very quickly, I work in radio. I do energy monitoring. My company's got 4,000 transmitters all around there. My job, I'm a software designer. So my job is to actually design software to analyze the dB levels between let's say it's a router, and then you've got multiple transmitters around this router, each calling into this router every 5 minutes. These are dotted all around the world. And all I do, and it's nothing glorified. I'm not saying I know all about this. I've come from an electricity background. Basically, the old man was a CPO, Sparky in the Navy. But either way, the whole thing about is how much of an effect is this 5G going to have on the skin? Now, we know, and I'm sure everybody in here has experienced that when you have a big, long conversation with that mobile phone up to your ear, you pull it away and it's had an effect. You've got a burny ear, basically, or a warm ear.
Yeah, that's because your battery's kind of hot. Your battery gets hot. So
and
like,
that,
there are
again,
other things in
is
the mobile phone.
Yeah, it's the emission thing. So it's you're put it this way, your head is still receiving a temperature change. Yeah. And that is caused by similar thing. It's not a microwave cooking your brain. I wouldn't go as far as that, but it is radiation. It's radiation. And from that battery as well. That battery
it's radiation. It's radiation, just like you get off a radiator or any kind of anything that heats, like radiation that you get off a light bulb. It's infrared.
No, it's not kinetic.
in the
Yeah, it's not kinetic. Even the WHO go into this to say that, yes, it does have a noticeable effect, as in the radiation of the EMF, the electromagnetic radiation, EMR, sorry. So there is definitely an effect. They admit, you look on the WHO and they fully admit, but they say extensive studies based over more than 10 years have proven that this does not have a detrimental effect. This is
it has a warming effect.
Yes, that's it. They say short-term effect is warming of the ear, warming of the leg, let's say. Long-term effect, no permanent damage, no irreversible damage that your body can't handle. Put it that way.
No, the actual the waves themselves, that frequency, the frequencies that they're using for 5G in particular, can't get deeper than I think it's the second layer of skin or something. It can't go through the whole skin. It can't penetrate hair.
Yes, it's similar to
obviously there are other types. If you change the frequency and up the amplitude to a higher frequency, then you know that will penetrate. So you're looking at X-rays, gamma rays, microwaves, obviously higher up in the spectrum. I think one of the big things that nobody's mentioned, everyone's talking about frequency. Nobody's mentioned amplitude whatsoever, and that's really important. You know that, Glenn. You know that from talking about radiation. It's the difference in it's like it's a volume, isn't it? Basically, it's how much how powerful the particular the wave is.
Yeah.
So the amplitude that the 5G is running at from the 5G emitters that they're using and that are commercially available, the amplitude is so low that that's one of the reasons why, because the frequency itself doesn't penetrate and the amplitude is so low. It means that they have to have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of them to get the coverage right. You can't just put up one tower, boost the amplitude and expect it to be safe for everybody, and that's why they're doing it in this way. It's not that all electromagnetic radiation is safe. It's not that all electromagnetic radiation is bad. It's like water. You can drink a glass of water, or you can put a fireman's hose in your mouth and turn it on. And I know which I'd prefer to do. It's how you use it. It's what mode and what method it's being used for. So you can say all water's dangerous because people drown in it, or you can say we need water for life because it's inherently one thing, or is it inherently another thing, or do you actually apply the nuance to it and say, well, in this situation you can do this with it, in this situation you can do that with it. And it's the same with radiation. It's the same with electromagnetic radiation.
No, I agree with you fully on that. I did. I was shaking. I was nodding my head. Sorry. Exactly when you were saying all that is it's exactly that. It's how much of an effect. Now, the only thing I can counter your argument with, because as I say, the 99% of it you were spot on, and I think I've got a trigger. The trigger word impossible, or my trigger words are impossible and no. I think those,
fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, those two are my trigger words, and I think just to shoot a bullet from the hip, and I'm gonna go on mute after I just explain this last quick thing, is that there was a hell of confidence in here yesterday, which was saying yes, science has obviously done many studies, many things, and I agree with a lot of the shooting back of the water thing, the water poisoning, instead of it being the actual thing. I agree there's a lot of misinformation on it, and science has investigated this particular topic really to death, and they do actually know it.
Yeah.
However, they do not know it fully. Now, what I will say to you is that there was so much confidence. I forget, it was Jack, wasn't it? It was you and Jack, and there was a Manny guy there as well. And you had so much confidence in the science. Now, I don't know whether you're aware, there's this thing called the reproducibility crisis in science.
Yeah, absolutely. I know about that.
Yeah.
Where you can't people aren't replicating studies because there's no money in replication.
Well, it's more they've gone back and they've said, well, let's try and test old well-known theories that we know is true and we treat as second nature, and we just carry on and use it as if it's always been true. And we'll test it using what they done, and we'll replicate the actual experiment. Now, this was done across, this wasn't just physics. This was more social sciences and sports and things like that, to like exercises, to these improve this and stuff like that. They tested a whole plethora of it, and they found that only 30% could be reproduced as they were.
Right.
Yeah. So it was more a lot of science, and you will find if you dig deep, a lot of science, the funding wise goes in the advantage of education. And that sounds odd, as if I'm saying that's a bad thing when it ain't. Let me give you one example, and I'll drop the mic. But dark matter is
right. Okay.
Is we've known about it since 1930s. Janor and Fritz Zwicky, Vera Rubin done all her works in 50s to 80s. She put it to the rest of the world. The rest of the world agreed. Yeah, we peer reviewed it. We found that there is a problem with our current model. And literally millions and millions and millions have been plowed into searching for dark matter, whether it's down in the ice lab in Antarctica or whether it's on CERN. They've spent loads of millions and millions on trying to find dark matter. Now, there's a guy called Eric Verlind, who's a theoretical physicist from Amsterdam. He's got a peer review paper in the peer review since 2016. It's actually failed due to other things, but his actual theory is, with maths, he can resolve dark matter. Now, if you think about that, if you take one step back and think, well, this dark matter thing could have just been a maths error, and we've just spent all this millions on all these experiments and chasing our tails, basically. So science is not absolute, I think, is my ultimate statement. And I yield the floor.
Hey, you lot are going in. Shout out Escape Route Media.
Yeah, for real. I listened to all of that. I was just taking a shit. That was dope.
This is
You just couldn't resist.
There's so much truth getting dropped today. I just thought, let's keep it real.
We don't want to tell the truth back.
5G thing, when I was kind of like trolling everyone like at the beginning, this is why I was getting so wound up. It's because like I'm listening to shit like that, yeah, and I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck you lot are talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like these people that will take all of that fucking text and copy and paste it and start going on like, look at this, as if it's a fact. Do you know what I'm saying? They was winding me up because it's just not a fact. And I think both of you, to some kind of degree, have like a high confidence in how true what you're saying is, but you've researched it quite extensively and you've got some real information there, and obviously kind of, you know, seem to respect each other's like sides of it as well. So that's the real discussion, I guess. So that was amazing from the jump. Okay,
can I just jump back in for a second?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I agree with you, Gleams, about some of the science is sometimes the jury's out on stuff. Okay, like the jury is very much out on dark matter because we don't know what it is, don't know what dark energy is, don't know what dark matter is, but we know it's there. We know it's there because of the maths. And it would what's his name? The Dutch scientist to come and say that we've probably got the maths wrong on this, and there's no such thing as dark energy or dark matter. Oh, sorry, not dark energy, dark matter. That's he would have to be able to resolve those equations himself because his evidence would have to be extraordinary in the face of the maths that's already been done on the subject. So I'm not saying that he's wrong, but you have to be able to present something compelling and extraordinary to be able to prove something. And the other point that science is changing. It does change, but there are certain things that we've reached consensus on. Evolution, we've reached consensus on evolution, we've reached consensus on gravity, we've reached consensus on a lot of aspects of physics. We're already reaching consensus on as the scientific community is.
But gravity and evolution are theories that predate modern science.
They happen before modern science. Everything happens before modern
science. No, I said our theories that predate. They're theories that other people beyond modern scientists believed in evolution and gravity.
Do you want me to give you a plot twist?
I would say modern science goes back to. I mean, it depends how long you're talking. I mean, for me, modern science is like is basically post Copernicus. It's 400 years, about 400 years. We've been working with scientific method. So that's have a hypothesis, make a prediction, and then test those predictions. Test those hypotheses, and then you've got you come up with a conclusion from there. And that's the scientific method. Instead of just going, oh, we've got this piece of evidence, this piece of evidence, this piece of evidence. Let's find something that fits all of that together, because you can't make predictions based on that, basically. So anyway.
Can I respectfully disagree?
Can I?
Go on, you, Sarah.
I was waiting for the floor. I knew it would.
I think that what we're trying to do, unfortunately, and it's what the West do all the time, is to quantify things, because it's easier to get results if we've got numbers. We're not looking at qualitative data, and that, unfortunately, is the problem. And that is probably where modern science has gone wrong.
What do you mean by qualitative data, and in what context do you mean? Like, what are you applying that to? Are you applying that to 5G? Are you applying that to vaccines? Are you applying that to spread of coronavirus? Are you applying that to dark matter? Or
I'm applying it to our style of thought currently, which is, if we don't have evidence, it doesn't exist. And we know that's garbage, actually, because we're leaning into this idea that everything has to fit in the guise of maths and science, but we are literally only looking at numbers. We are not looking at qualitative experiences. We're not looking at people's life experience. And we're also discounting, as Ben said, all the science that took place well before modern science, and we need to lean into ourselves a little bit more for the answers. Looking at things like vaccines, for example, yesterday, people were talking about autism and how there's no evidence to prove that vaccines could be the trigger for autism, but there's plenty of evidence to say that actually that just might be the case.
Yeah.
There's just not money in that study, because the money is in the pharmaceuticals. We must understand that, right? You follow the money, you get the answers.
Vaccines have an effect regardless, like what people want to say. Like I was saying yesterday, it affects people differently. Medication affects people differently. Side effects are different. But any chemical, I think, that's put into our bodies has an effect of some sort. So, yeah, I don't think that you can say that vaccines don't cause autism. Where's the proof that it doesn't?
I mean, for your immune system.
Where's the proof that it does? The burden of proof is really important on that. Where's the proof that it does? Because that's...
But this is it. How do we rule things out just because where's the proof? This is the problem. It's trying to quantify something. Why does there have to be evidence on the contrary for that to be the case? Just because someone somewhere was given some funding to do a piece of research, who already had hypotheses in their own mind and just went along with that to decide what they needed to do. Look at Bill Gates, for example. Vaccines are very much like antivirus, and there he was with this computer model in his mind, and now he's transferred it with no qualifications whatsoever. And people are like, I'd take that. That will make me safe. That will make my child safe. How will you be allergy? Water.
Nah, dude, he's
saying,
putting
like
money.
Go on.
He's putting money into research, into vaccine research. He's not sitting in a lab himself. He's not applying his computer algorithms to creating vaccines. He's just putting money in because it's not being publicly funded. It's not being funded properly. So
interest. Tell me what his interest is. His interest is in depopulation.
Philanthropy.
Depopulation.
No.
And his party.
Do you know what? Okay, let me explain something. I'm just going to explain. How do you think he's depopulating people through vaccines? I'm just going to ask that question. How do you think, Sarah, he's depopulating people through vaccines?
Because he is funding. He is very, very influential, and he is funding inappropriate vaccines that are being tested on people who don't even have the basic human rights, and that is disgusting. Disgusting.
But how do you think? I'm asking specifically. How is Bill Gates using vaccines to depopulate? Because I know how he's doing it, but I'm asking you how you think he's doing it.
No, I'm sorry. If you know how he's doing it, then why are you asking me?
Wow.
Because a lot of people have got the wrong idea about depopulation through vaccines. People think that they're giving people vaccines.
You believe there's only one way to do something. You know, just like you were talking about how someone could drink water from a cup and someone could drink it from a hose. And I'm sure you were the same person yesterday saying, I've got a sick kid, so everyone needs to be vaccinated. There are many ways to do things, right?
No, that wasn't me. And there are many ways to do things. But the way he's using vaccines to depopulate, to help depopulate countries is by he's stopping children from dying too young. He's stopping infant mortality, so people aren't having as many children. The massive example is Bangladesh, where they had a birth rate of between 8 to 11 per family, and they've dropped that down to 2 in a decade because they've been vaccinating people and vaccinating children, and they've been educating women.
So now Bill Gates is playing God. Bill Gates gets to decide, because you don't have the same quality of life as a Western person, you are subjected to only having a certain amount of children.
No, he's giving people the opportunity to have a better life than having to have 4 or 5 of your children die.
Africa needs clean water, and Africa needs food. Feed them. Send them the money for food, you know?
And can I ask Jacob a couple questions?
They also need modern medicine.
Jacob, you're saying so I kind of get the point you're trying to make. So his argument is that by lowering child mortality, people have less children, because when your children die a lot, you have more children. Yeah. However, this is my skepticism. This is my skepticism.
It is true, Sarah. It's true.
That's the argument he's trying to make. But here's my skepticism. You haven't looked into the studies on why the birth rate has dropped.
Yeah, through educate women.
And also,
you educate women and you vaccinate children. That's how you do it.
That's
how it's been done.
No, you don't. Educate women. What exactly is educating women? Sterilizing them? Giving them contraception?
No. What are you talking about? Why are you putting words in my mouth? Educating women, as in giving them the opportunities to go to university and school instead of spend their whole life washing up and having children.
Oh my goodness. Can I just leave this now? He is ridiculous. Honestly. You really think that Bill Gates is influential in helping women to go to university?
Not just Bill Gates, lots of philanthropic groups are doing it. Lots of NGOs are pushing for the education of women in developing countries, yes.
Developing countries? Are you calling Africa underdeveloped? I just have a question for you, seriously.
Ross Clark.
Having lived in Africa for quite some time, yes, I'm saying Africa is... lots of countries in Africa are developing countries. Yes.
Really? Developed in what sense?
Yes.
What are they developing in what sense? In regard to what basis?
In the context of language that we use, you have developed nations and you have developing nations, because we don't use first world and third world anymore.
Oh, really? Why not?
Because we've moved beyond the concept.
Concept of?
first world and third world. We talk about developed and developing now.
It's concept of superiority. That's what it is, and it's a shame.
Have you spent much time in Africa? I know you talk about Africa. Like you've mentioned it twice. You mentioned it yesterday. You mentioned it today. What time have you spent in Africa?
Okay, so you're trying to debunk my argument by asking me what time I've spent in Africa. I don't believe.
No, I'm not trying to debunk anything.
No,
I'm asking you what time you spent there.
So you're saying you're not doing that then? Are you not doing that? Because if you're not doing that, I'm not going to answer the question. But if you are doing that, then I'll answer it.
I'm just trying to ask you why you think that lots of nations aren't developing nations. I'm talking about India, I'm talking about Bangladesh, I'm talking about some countries in Southeast Asia, I'm talking about some countries in South America. I'm not just talking about Africa as a continent either. Certain countries are way more developed in Africa than others. Like if you go to Ghana or Nigeria, they're a lot more developed than Gabon or Congo. You know, there's different levels in different places, and it's about developed and developing. We say that here in certain places in the West.
Here's one of the problems though, Jacob, yeah. When a place is called developed, yeah, or underdeveloped, I mean, they suddenly lose agency in the decisions. So now you've got like some billionaire philanthropist has an idea how to solve their problems, comes down there and does what he feels like. Now, whether he does good or bad in that situation, he shouldn't have that power. And he wouldn't do it in the West. He wouldn't do it anywhere where it's developed because he would be held to account because there's so much regulation in protecting the citizen. But he goes to places like Bangladesh because in Bangladesh, then he can pay for the studies that are done and then we don't really know. And that is why there's a mistrust, because if he was doing it here like he's doing it in Bangladesh, then be like, okay, maybe. But he's not. You know what I'm saying? He's going to Congo, he's going Bangladesh, he's going places where there's zero government accountability.
Well, no, he's not doing it in places that are zero accountability. He's doing it in places where the WHO, he's doing it through the WHO for a start. He's not just going ahead and doing it. It's all being done through a body, a world body. And it's being done in places that need it. So here in Germany, in America, we're pretty good with modern medicine. We're pretty good with vaccines. But in places where they have high rates of mortality, high rates of infant mortality, that's where the work's needed. So what's the point in doing all this work in places where there's already...
Oh, I think I just jumped to my pinnacle moment.
So in 1991, 1 in 10,000, this is the World Health Organization stats, had autism.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 in 10,000. Now, in 2020, it's 1 in 32.
Right, so there's a hell of a lot of overdiagnosis, and that's something we talked about and moved on from yesterday.
77 million people across the world have autism.
Right. So again, we talked about this yesterday. It's the cases of overdiagnosis now and underdiagnosis back then. There's got to be a happy medium between the two where it's going to level out.
So what you're saying is that science is wrong?
No, I'm saying that the science isn't a black and white thing. It's something that,
you know, now you're using the qualitative data. You want to use that. Now you're saying, oh, it must be that, you know. But actually, there's a lot of information about it being related to vaccinations, because
I'm saying the studies that have been done on more than 500,000 children so far,
which is nothing on 7 billion people, but go on.
The studies that have been done so far on 500,000 people, 500,000 children have been tested over the last 20 years since Andrew Wakefield came out with his bullshit. And in those 500,000 children, it's been shown that there is no correlation, there's no causation between vaccines and autism. Okay, that's just a fact.
How have they shown that? I don't understand what process have they gone through to actually, because that would be years of observation, just like it to diagnose autism. So you could just look at some child and say, oh, that's not vaccine based off one day, one session, when it takes years to even diagnose.
Studies is studies that have been going for 20 years over and studied 500,000 children, which is a huge number. It's one of the biggest bodies of people that you can use.
We're vaccinating
like 500,000
from what, 12 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. We're vaccinating them. They cannot handle it. Their immune system is not.
No, they're vaccinating them from day one. From day one, when you're in the hospital, they're giving them vitamin K. You can't come out of the hospital without it.
And the immune system is not. The immune system is not mature enough to be able to combat and mount that and actually even take it on board.
No, that's why you have some vaccinations early, and then later on you have more, and then later on you have a few more. Because we've worked with a system that knows when is appropriate to take the right vaccines, instead of just chucking them all in one and saying, there you go, and killing children.
Okay, so if the immune system doesn't mature until you're at least 14 years old, between 7 and 14 years old, your immune system matures. Why would you vaccinate?
Your immune system's constantly changing, constantly.
Matures, not changing, matures, is able to mount a vaccine and be able to fight it. Because the thing is, we're giving vaccines to tiny babies. We do not know how they feel about it. And in my experience, what I noticed from a set of vaccines that I gave my son, and I decided never to do it again, it made him very sick. Surely making my tiny baby who cannot tell me how sick they are sick is not the answer to making them not sick in the future, surely.
Right, I tell you what, it may be a bit off the point, but
well, the thing is with the...
Now go on, Jacob.
If with your baby, it's, a lot happens when a vaccine goes into the body. They're not putting the disease in the body, they're putting the parts of a virus that will activate your immune system, which will show symptoms. So you can have symptoms, mild symptoms. So if your child gets
fetal matter, all sorts is in there, metals, all of these things I'm injecting.
Okay, it's not fetal matter, it's stem cells. It's stem cells that have been grown in a lab that may have originated. Like the first time we took those cells, they were from fetal matter, but we've been growing them in labs ever since. And to be honest with you, if you're taking stuff from
just to clear up her question, it was from fecal matter. It was from aborted babies. That what you were saying. You just gonna go all the way around the point to say it was originally come from babies, and we're still using the same ones today. That's basically what you just said. So she was right in what she was saying.
We're using stem cells that are grown in a lab.
That originally came from
what you have in your body doesn't come from a baby. Okay.
There you go. So you just basically told her. You just answered the question for her.
As in the original research, the original research was done using fetal matter. Yes, it was. And that's fetal matter from an aborted pregnancy. Yeah. So to use that tissue to save billions of lives is really important. I think it was important work.
Okay. Do you not think it should be a human right on what you can put inside someone's body? Because I know there's a case in Italy of a 21, I think he's 22 now, but forget the age. He's an old enough man to be able to know and make his own decisions. And he's now taking his parents to court because his parents circumcised him and he cut off something off his body. And the case actually going forward because they cut off something. So if you cut something off or if you stick something in, it's pretty much the same thing. So I think there is an argument to say maybe they should wait.
Have you heard about the guy in America suing his? Did you hear about the guy in America suing his parents because they didn't vaccinate him?
I'm not against it. He's got the case and he's right, bro. You can smile, but I'm not arguing with you.
No, I agree. I don't think genital mutilation is a good thing. Personally, of boys or girls. So
you and that Italian, you are
that's a different thing.
Can't sue your parents for circumcising you.
Yeah, man, respect your parents better than that, man.
Hey, you might what his manhood? It took away a bit of his manhood, didn't it? And the man wants it back. So
it's not much. It's not much.
We've got some people in the comments as well. Escape Route Media said a while ago that this seems like he said this is facts versus emotions. But we've got someone called Ray Brands, who's saying, so are you willing to play roulette with your children's health? I guess Jacob doesn't feel like he's playing roulette, but
I feel like if you're playing roulette by not vaccinating your children, you're playing roulette. If you don't vaccinate your children, you're playing roulette with their lives. That's what I believe. But I'm sure Sarah believes the opposite. So it's a case of however you garner your data and whatever you put your mind to. So
by vaccinations, you could be putting your child in danger. So you don't have the proof that vaccines are going to actually work for your child. You don't know what vaccines are going to do to your child, whether it's going to bring on any challenging behavior or any issues or health issues or whatever. You don't know.
So the person who made that comment followed up as well and said that their parents didn't vaccinate them when they was 19. They got the mumps and could have been made infertile. I wasn't vaccinated either. I said that yesterday, and I had every one of them kind of things you get vaccinated. I had every illness. I can't remember which one. One of them definitely nearly killed me at one point when I was young. Talking to my mum about this last night. Someone has said here from Precious saying, I really like Sarah and her point of view. Jacob is not as on point as he was yesterday, but Sarah needs to let other people speak. Jump over. Okay, I haven't felt that way. I don't know about anyone else.
Can I say something? I got a couple of points to make, because I feel like it's getting a bit simplified here, because when we're talking about vaccines and vaccines are bad, like that is very simple. It's too simplified because every vaccine is different. The vaccine for flu, for example, does give you a new type of a strain of flu that they're predicting to come around that year, and every year it changes because flu evolves every year. The vaccine, the MMR vaccine, is something totally different. Like every vaccine is different, so you can't say one is bad and one is good and all that. And I think this really does come from back in the day, there's thalidomide, I think it was called, where loads of babies were born.
Yeah.
So people kind of just inherently mistrust them at the moment, but basically you can't put them all in the same group. Some of them, this is a matter of belief, really. Like people are putting faith in this stuff like it's religion, when science is not religion. Ricky Gervais had a good quote about it. It's like, if we burned all religious texts today, in 1,000 years, would any of them be the same? Probably not. But if we burn every scientific text today, in 1,000 years, with the same experiments and the same experimentation, you would come up with the same results because it's tested. When something becomes a theory, it's not a theory in the traditional sense of like, oh, my theory is the sky is blue because God likes that color. No, a scientific theory is tested. Like it has to be tested by multiple different scientists and agreed by peers. Like,
but the point was made earlier, Bones, that a lot of the old tests have been redone and they're not getting the same results. And
well then
some of them were peer reviewed. Some of them were peer reviewed at the time. And the thing is, peer reviews also depend on spending, on how much money is spent on the peer review.
No, that's undoubted.
Research on retesting the work, and it doesn't always happen. So science, to an extent, you know what I'm saying? It can't always be back.
Nah, science is not always right, but like a lot of things you can test, and if unrelated people test things and then they come up with the same results, the likelihood is that that's accurate, People are saying, oh, how do you know vaccines ain't bad? Like, well, if something's been tested, it's never 100%. It's never 100%. But it's better than getting some fucking mad deformity and dying from, or some mad disease and then dying, innit? Like, it's better to take that 10% risk than have the 90% risk. I had mumps as well. That shit's fucked. I'm lucky I got kids now, you get me? Like, I'm just trying to say that, like, it's a balance, innit? And if you don't want to take them, that's up to you. But just know that you can catch something bad. But there's a lot of
thalidomide isn't even a vaccine. This is what I'm saying. People have a mistrust of pharmaceuticals because populations have been poisoned. And it's happened more than just thalidomide. There's a long history of capitalism and pharmaceutical getting together and doing horrible things.
For definitely.
I think
so. There's the mistrust isn't not like
but there's a difference between
it's not
pharmaceutical
crazy or conspiracy. You're right to have a certain mistrust.
Now, but imagine this, Ballo. You see, like back in the day, in Europe, smallpox was a big thing, Smallpox was killing loads of people and shit. And then they realized that if you give someone a small dose of smallpox, what it actually does is it allows you
cowpox. they gave him cowpox.
Yeah,
So
cowpox, sorry, yeah. And then they give you a small dose of it, and then they realize people can't catch that again now, yeah? So, like, imagine they never did that, then people would still be dying of it, you get me? So
I'm not arguing anti-vaccine like everyone else. All I'm saying is you lot are kind of arguing the argument of science again, and then saying people's distrust of pharmaceuticals is a conspiracy. I'd say
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all, because
polluting points. That's all I meant.
Mate, I'm just trying to say, yeah, that this is a debate that is oversimplified by saying vaccines are bad and vaccines are good. Science is right and science is wrong. No, it's not like that. Science itself wants to be proven wrong. Do you see what I'm trying to say to you? So, and I'm not talking about pharmaceutical companies that have a vested interest in making people take certain drugs and selling drugs to people. I'm talking about science, actual science. The definition of it is to try and figure out the truth about the environment in which we live. That's what science is supposed to be. Do you get me?
But we got a comment again from, I missed all these comments yesterday, so I'm making sure I get them, from Remorseless Red, saying the scientific community today is a religion. And also Rai, who gave the last comment, who was kind of anti, not giving vaccines. He said he's not gonna lie though, I don't really get ill now. And I was kind of saying that yesterday because I didn't have none of the vaccines, and I feel like I don't.
Because you built up the antibodies, Nova. Because you've had the disease, now you've got the antibodies. But some people would die from them diseases. That's why they get vaccinated, because like it's a risk, innit? I had mumps just like someone else was saying they had it as well. Fucking fucks you up, bro.
One other kind of layer.
Can I add to something Bone said? Can I just add to something Bone said about science quickly? One of the big points about science versus religion or versus a lot of these other methodologies is that science is a methodology, not an ideology, and it has the ability to make accurate predictions, which religion doesn't, which pseudoscience doesn't, and which a lot of these conspiracies don't. They don't have the ability to make accurate predictions, accurate testable predictions. And a huge part of the scientific method is testing and testing and testing and testing your own theories by making predictions, and then finding out if they're accurate or not. And when they're not accurate, that stuff's put to one side. And when they are accurate, that's when you can build on it. I just want to make that point.
The history of science is from religion, though. So I'm saying
it is.
The way we separate everything is convoluting the issue. Can we get back to Corona?
Can I ask a question? Yeah. Can I ask a question on it?
On what?
On Corona, on exactly that. Would you, can I just ask everyone to answer this though? Would you believe that the UK government could test germs on their own population, for acts of war, to know what does what? Does anyone believe that that would be possible? Do you think that something like the Corona could be a government collusion and be testing the public on something new?
Well, the other day, Genesis Elijah was on the show, and he said he thought China was making weapons and it broke out.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that.
What's the question?
I don't think England would do that on their own, just for the fact how it affect the economy.
Yeah, that's how I feel. That's what I was
yeah. I don't think. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's got anything. It's got nothing to do with morals. It's got nothing to do with money. We know. We've seen with the whole lockdown thing. England tried to do it as low as possible to not affect the economy. Just trying to make it not affect the economy hard.
Can I just ask everyone to look in the side chat?
What's that?
In the side chat, you know the chat. I've just dropped an article from I know it's the Guardian. Okay, it's a newspaper, but the UK literally tested millions in germ warfare tests back in between 1940 and 1978, back where I'm from, down south, all the way down Bournemouth, Dorset. What they done, I'll read a few bits of it, and of course it's all there and you can check it all down. If you're aware, one of the biggest germ warfare stations is Porton Down, which was a massive center of attention with that big Russia gate and whatever, with the Russian spy getting jook up with a...
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was in Salisbury. So what these were doing was likes of anthrax, releasing anthrax in East Lulwich in Dorset, and there was a spike in disabled defects at birth. So much so that I don't know if anyone knows that part of the country, but it's an army base. The whole of Salisbury
is massive.
Yeah, it's literally an army base. Now, colonels and top boys in the army themselves sued the government because their babies themselves were defected. And they said, no, this is definitely due to these things. We knew about these tests. We just didn't know what the consequences would be. And it's, they were spraying, the US and UK military scientists spraying into the air massive quantities of Serratia massacratus bacteria with anthrax stimulant and phenol.
What you're saying, yeah? Are you saying maybe like the corona virus could be some kind of test and they fucked up, like it's gone too far or something?
No, I'm saying it's a possibility we can't rule out. There we go.
He's saying we all thought the government wouldn't do something like that, and there's actual evidence of them doing something like that.
There's plenty of evidence of the government experimenting on people, you get me? Like, not just our government in the UK, in America, MK Ultra, all that shit, that's verified, you get me? But
in America, they've already gone, sorry guys.
I was just gonna say, like, with coronavirus, that I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't like experimentation, because in Wuhan they've got like a viral warfare lab or whatever it's called. I don't know what it's called, but they've got like a virus center in Wuhan, China.
Yeah.
And I do think that
it
could have been something where they were creating it in the lab and it escaped, but I don't think it's on purpose, because look, it's going to cost this country, UK, 250 billion. There's no way they'd do that on purpose. Like the Tories as well. Are you mad?
Germany's already out in their compensation claim. They're what, in 130 billion. The US is like it wanting to mount their things. They're talking about trillions. So if it's true that it's released on purpose or not, it's what if the narrative, if that's the way it's going, which is the way it seems to be going, because at first it was not, it couldn't have come from a lab, then it's like, yeah, maybe now it's like,
it could have, but I don't think we can't say it definitely did, because that's fucking getting into batshit crazy territory. But like,
to back the conspiracy again one more time.
Hold on, Jacob's got the gun finger up again.
Yeah, but to back the conspiracy again before you go in. When the recession happened, I know you're not seeing the big spot here. When the recession happened, there were so many warnings before the whole world crashed. I mean, and there's another recession on the way right now, and there's a bunch of warnings, and a bunch of CEOs quit. I'm saying, like, the economy,
major CEOs.
We think the economy is the most important thing to people, but there's other things in play beyond the economy, because they're willing to let it crash.
Yeah, but
a bunch of times.
What about if they had a heads up warning that this shit's coming, it's leaked out of the lab, we've had a heads up warning, fuck off quickly before it gets out of hand, you get me? Like, that's more plausible to me than like, we're doing a test, lads, like everyone, all the scientists, let's collude it's too much logistically.
Too much, yeah, it's too much.
Yeah, but no one said that. No one said that. That you didn't say that.
No, you don't have to control everybody.
My guy was just saying the British government did test on citizens as an example.
All governments
He never said that corona was a test. He said we just can't dismiss everything we're dismissing.
Yeah, we can't dismiss nothing.
Done in the past.
I just think it's weird. It's weird because Bill Gates and the simulation thing, the drill that they run, all that stuff, and then realizing that he's the guy that wants to create the vaccine, and then pandemic comes on Netflix and he's the guy that funded that a week before this all happens. It's like, it's a bit strange, and I did put a post on my page.
But Bill Gates has been on that for a minute though, isn't it?
Look at the family history, look at the family history.
Can I just jump in?
Go on.
Let me jump in here.
Gunfinger, go on.
The information that we've got so far based on the DNA of the virus itself, and based on the information that we already know where SARS came from and where MERS came from, the wet markets is basically the most fertile breeding ground for viruses to mutate, because like the types of coronavirus that we've had so far, this isn't the first type of coronavirus. There are many different types of coronavirus. This one, COVID-19, is a particular mutation of a coronavirus. It's jumped from one animal into another animal, and then it's managed to make its way into humans through a mutation. And that's important to note, that we know that where the mutations happened previously, so we can trace it backwards. And it's not just a case of this has just spontaneously come out of nowhere. This has come from one thing and mutated into another thing to be into humans. So to make the point that this is a conspiracy or this is weaponized in some way, it's a push, man. You'd have to come up with some really strong evidence.
Jacob, it's not a push, bruv. Yeah, what it is it's plausible, but it's not definite. We can't say anything's implausible in this situation. But you're correct in the sense that
no, but you'd have to have some really strong evidence.
It was predictable by someone like Bill Gates because he's been investigating things like SARS, MERS, and there was another one as well. I can't remember what it was called, but there's been 3 coronaviruses since 2003-4, which have been like serious. All started in China as well. And so it's no, one was in the Middle East, sorry. And
MERS was in the Middle East, and
it is predictable. Like he gave a TED talk on it last year that we're headed for a global pandemic, and governments aren't doing enough and stuff like that. You get me? So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's plausible. It is plausible, but if you look at like Occam's razor, yeah. So the most likely, the simplest answer is usually the correct one. Most often the correct one. So the simplest answer being because we can trace it back so far into the wet markets, into civet cats.
But loads of people have already said that's not the case, because loads of scientists was already agreed that there was numerous cases that had contracted COVID-19 that they'd never been to the market. So it was obviously it obviously come through,
because it had already mutated and passed to one person and then jumped.
But it may have come through. But if you think about it like this, Chinese people have been eating things like that for thousands of years, brother. Yeah. Don't try and tell me they've not, because the tradition goes back a very long way.
We've been having pandemics for thousands of years.
Not every 5 minutes like this, not every 5 minutes like this, bro. Do you know what I mean?
No, because we haven't had 7 billion people on the planet.
The MERS thing was pretty contained compared to what this is. This feels like it's run way out of control, and the government. I don't think it's elite, because the government don't seem to have any control. They don't seem to know what to do. So it wasn't elite from the government, but there's not just governmental industries operating in this. There's independent. Bill Gates is not part of any kind of government. He's a government advisor, cool, but you're not within government. So there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of people's interest.
But where's the motivation?
Can I have a go at this Occam's razor thing?
Do you know what? If I go into this, it's gonna look like Nova Flip's background.
Yeah, no.
It's gonna go crazy. It's gonna go crazy, and you're an academic, so you're gonna say, nah. It can't be like that. And this is the thing.
Bro, go for it, fam.
Let me do it.
Now I need Chris in here. Where's Chris, bro? Chris,
let me do it.
Where is Chris?
It's about control, man.
Yo, you got back up here, man. You got back up here. Serious.
Yes, Sam, my brother.
Serious, right.
Let's go. Lay it down.
Before you go deep, I was going to say, did these people look on the actual spread of, where it come from originally, and how it didn't even spread to any of the, it didn't really spread out of that city in China. It didn't go to Shanghai.
It didn't go to Beijing too much neither.
No, they locked down China quick. They locked it down quick time. If you live in a communist country, you can lock shit down quickly. I mean, there's a police state. You can lock it down. It's fine.
Yeah, I get that. But then how come, if they locked it down quickly in China, how come it's it didn't stay in China then? It spread to everywhere else, but they've locked it down. So if they locked it down to not just spread in China, then it shouldn't have really got out of China, right?
They kicked everyone out.
They just locked it down better than they've locked it down here, and there's still people leaving China, internationals that were in Wuhan.
Switzerland hasn't even locked down, and their infection rate is no higher than anywhere else. That's a bit strange. Isn't it?
It's because they've dealt with it better than we have. Our infection rate is terrible because we dealt with it really poorly. But you look at New Zealand, and they dealt with it really well.
Let everybody get infected. They've said herd immunity is cool.
We don't know what's going to happen there yet.
But who's saying only 2 to 3% of people have gained immunity in Switzerland, or is it Sweden? It's one of them. Sorry, guys, I've been smoking too much today. But
Sweden.
They turned around and said the people there are the big things about this to spread, and the people of 30% immunity. How does that work when we're quarantined and only can gain 2 to 3%? How does it work? It's a ploy, man. You see the police, you see the fire brigade. Who's wearing gloves? I seen them on Westminster the other day. Everyone stood together clapping for the NHS. You better get more beds because aren't you transmitting it more? These are your rules and policies. This is what you said. Don't stand together, shoulder to shoulder. Everyone's out there. Police, fire brigade, nurses.
I mean,
it's like,
sorry to make it trivial, but when you're in the supermarket, you've got to give 2 meters distance in front, but you can be right beside someone. They're not 2 meters away from you. So I don't get it. Like, it's not ringing true.
Can I ever go at this Occam's razor thing and just try? What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through a conspiracy-minded person, which I normally do a Columbo on anything like this either way. And I tried to backpedal off this. I was just like, nah, this is real. This is real. I ain't getting involved. But let me start. 2011. Okay. Bill Gates was at a conference for patents. Okay. Now patents, everyone knows, is you get a patent, you can then sell that worldwide, which is exactly what the likes of pharmaceuticals are involved big on. You get one patent for one drug, put it worldwide, you get massive billions from everyone.
I once saw a meme that said patents are the patent office is the only thing the white man ever invented. It made me laugh.
Interesting fact. Interesting fact. Einstein's profession was a patent clerk. Either way. So
as was Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison was a patent clerk, and that's how he ended up inventing the light bulb.
And taking it. Either way, back to the case. I'm going to drop links to everything, right? And I'll do it on the video once you upload it, and it's all cool. But in the side chat, I'm gonna cite everything. And what I've tried to do is steer clear of all conspiracy websites and try to cite common. So in 2011, Bill Gates is at this conference saying it's a vaccine decade. And he explains how the public system drives, the patent system drives public health aid. Okay, and he's blatantly saying, look, everyone, look to vaccines. They're going to be a good money spinner. Okay, now that's 2011. 2015, he does his infamous TED Talk, the next breakout. I'm just posting that in the chat as well. If anyone's seen it, or if everyone should have seen it, he's talking about this exact scenario right now. Now, in that same year as well, he actually funded Pirbright Laboratories in the UK, and has been ever since on a yearly basis. Now, I don't see anything conspiratorial just in that alone, because he is funding loads of people, obviously. So the thing is that there could be a connection, is that back in 2015, same way, he funded a COVID-8, I think it was, which was the chicken strain of this exact same, which is COVID and coronaviruses are very common. And everyone knows over the past years and whatnot, that is their name for them. That is their collective name for the common cold, is a coronavirus. But moving on, it turns out that if you go on Pirbright Laboratories website right now, they list Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as one of their major stakeholders. And if you look back through Bill's got a full list on his website, basically saying how much they funded Pirbright every year. And it ranges between $250,000 and $1 million, per project, let's say, or per year. And let me drop that. Then in 2019, there was a actual worldwide, of this Pirbright, there was a new CEO and team put in place of Pirbright. And that was in November of 2019, just before any of this all broke out. And that was at the same time that Bill and Melinda donated 5.5 million, which was substantially more than their previous $250,000 to $1 million. Now, their funding was specifically for vaccines to help animals, to help humans through animals. So there's Pirbright's site there. Then on 2019, there was this guy, and it's a YouTube video either way. He says in this YouTube video, look, I don't want you to go down the conspiracy route with this, but this is what I done. And I don't know if anyone's watched it, but he done his gap year over in China. And he literally had mates over there, and he phoned them up and he done a face-to-face with them and literally said, look, what's going on? And they were saying, everything's all right. We're all opening back up, this, that, and the other. And he was going, really? Why is your numbers so low? and they instantly took defensive. And he was like, rah, they're my mates. You know what I mean? Why are they going all government on me? You know what I mean? All laying into me as if I've just told them something about their kids or something. And literally, he started looking into it and found that in November 2019, the same Wuhan laboratory was put up an advert and still have the vacancy on their website today for this exact thing, to research COVID-19 in bats. Now it's still there now. It hasn't, the vacancy has not been filled. And it still says open November 2019. Now, again, that's no conspiracy, but that was before everyone knew of the breakout. Now, as was rightly said earlier, in that same month, Bill has funded and got together a worldwide consortium, including the Rockefeller Association.
Event 201.
Event 201. And it's literally in preparation, and they were preparing for an outbreak and what would happen. And they all sat around a table, if anyone's seen the meeting, and they're all discussing things like, this is what governments would have to do. This is our transportation would have to, logistics and so and so and so. So it was preparing for this exact situation. And then obviously, I mean, put it this way.
Do you know they do that sort of thing all the time?
Of course.
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah, of course. But
in
this
terms
was
of, not just with pandemics, with other kinds of natural disasters, nuclear accidents, just apocalyptic type situations, and places where they need relief and aid on a global basis. So that sort of thing does happen all the time. It's coincidental. It is coincidental, but that's just exactly what it is. It's coincidence.
Yeah, I don't know. From a conspiracy point of view, it was coincidental that they were having a exercise on 9/11. It was coincidental that they were having a 7/7 exercise on exactly the same thing that happened and turned into real life. But that's a conspiratorial mind. Either way, to finalize it off, if you say follow where the money is, yeah, Bill Gates worth 100 billion, whatever it is. He's not the richest man, Jeff is. But at the end of the day, he put 40% of his wealth into this foundation, which is protected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not floated on the stock exchange. All of his other wealth is actually on the stock exchange. So there's a 50-50 thing of, yeah, he could have protected it and then allowed everything to drop, or just watched everything drop. But again, in my eyes, I think there's bigger people, bigger than Bill and Jeff, that are pulling the puppet strings. But either way, if you followed the money of Bill saying, this next decade, yeah, is going to be the decade of vaccines. Everyone get on the patents. Everyone get in the pharmaceutical industry. Then the 9th year of that happening, he sets up this particular thing. He funds this. And yep, you can all say coincidence, definitely. But how many coincidences does it take to screw in a light bulb?
That's a good one.
Well, that's, I agree that there are certain things that look fishy, because you can look for things that look fishy. How many conferences and how many events did Bill Gates go to over the last 9 years? And the one that is being focused on is the one that happened to be to do with something that he did 9 years previously. How many natural disaster events happened over the last, say he went to something the week before and we had a big earthquake the week after, would you say that he's responsible for the earthquake because he's got money in fracking? Like, I don't know, like, where it's easy to sort of pick things out the air and pick things from places and pick data and pick experiences that people have had and apply them to something without actually having any evidence to back it up other than the coincidence. And that's the way our brains work. We work with pattern recognition. That's why we're better than animals at most things that we do, because we recognize patterns and we can learn things. But until you have categorical evidence to prove these things, they are just conspiracies. They are just theories, and they're not theories in the scientific sense of the word theory. They're theory in the sense of the idea of the word theory. They're imaginative You know, they're creative, but they're not based in fact. They have, for me, things have to be based in fact to be actioned.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with everything.
So someone said yesterday. Go on, Jacob. Please finish your point, mate.
No, sorry, I was just saying. I agree. I agree with everything you just said there. There is no knowledge here, and that's what I said at the beginning. My trigger words: no, no one, none of us in here can honestly tell any other person, you know what is going on. Everyone is a mad.
No, you can't. It's all opinion based and from how you interpret the information that's in front of you. Every single one of us could get the same piece of information and interpret differently. So, but if you follow what knowledge is out there and what information is out there, some things do look a bit sketchy. So kind of know me and you spoke on this the other day. So the status I put out is, I don't know if you know, but Bill Gates has a dad called Bill Gates and he has a dad called Bill Gates. And if you follow the Bill Gates, a few Bill Gates down, Bill Gates' father that we know, he was on. Someone said about eugenics yesterday. He
Parenthood.
with the American Eugenics Society, and then he went on to Planned Parenthood, and then he went on to make the William Gates Foundation. But in that, there was all talking about, when you go back to the American Eugenics Society, it was talking about stopping people that was unfit to reproduce from reproducing. Now, my mum was in this fucking foundation. So if you obviously, if you, some people do work in certain places, don't hold them ideals. I really highly doubt someone of that caliber would be one of them people. So that was one of his ideals. And then you've moved on to another company called Planned Parenthood, which is just basically the same thing. And then he moved it on to the William Gates Foundation and then passed it on to Bill Gates Reno, which is now the Belinda and Bill Gates Foundation. Isn't it funny how we're still talking about reproductive therapies and medicine for developing countries, not developed countries? Why do it's just very sketchy, because you can follow the dad back to the Nazis. IBM has a case. It did get dropped. It did get dropped because they said they didn't want it to impede on any other cases to obviously victims of the Holocaust. But IBM in America, which again Bill Gates, the father, was on the board of and made these decisions, you leased the Nazis, the Third Reich, you leased them punch card software to calculate how many Jews should be sent to concentration camps. You was with these people. You go back to the Nazis, you go follow history. It was all about eugenics. We've just got a lot better, a lot smarter. Bill is obviously a very kind face. Do you know what I mean? So he doesn't look very malevolent. So he's not one of them guys that people think, oh, he's one of them guys who's going to take over the world. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. But there is people that are psychotic and do have these tendencies in the street. It doesn't matter if they're in high office or not. They have these tendencies. I think Bill Gates and his family have these philosophies. Simple.
Anyone heard of the Bilderberg Group?
Yeah.
Right, so we know who those people are, and there's a suggestion that Bill and Melinda Gates are part of that group. Yeah. And we know that they are absolutely fascinated with eugenics, and they do have a plan to depopulate the world by 80%. And this would be the perfect way to do so. I also, this could be a conspiracy theory, but there may be that Bill Gates is a distant cousin to the Rothschilds, and you know the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers are involved with the build. You can shake your head, but come on, like, you know, here we are in this space with all of these things happening. We can't discount these things at all. We have to think about it. And we know that the Bilderberg Group are this shadow government, the shadow world government, with the idea to bring in a new world order. And wouldn't it be ideal to bring in a pandemic in order to get people in order, to fill them with fear, to kind of trigger their adrenaline, to bring them into a space of complete stress and control them, make them believe that the vaccine is going to save them from something, you know? There's plenty of money in it. There's plenty of reasons why that should happen for them, you know?
Can I just drop the conspiracy bomb on top of that as well? I just put it in the chat, same way. Bill Gates has just patented or just had a patent confirmed into the system on the 26th of the 3rd, so about a week ago, for
I know this
cryptocurrency system using body activity data.
called
It's basically a chip.
WO 2020 060606. That's a patent number.
Yeah, A1. Exactly.
And this group of people are totally fascinated with eugenics, and we are one big experiment currently.
Yeah.
When you say eugenics, what do you mean? Like I know eugenics in the classic sense of the word, stuff that people were talking, like the Nazis were talking about. But what do you mean by? Are you talking about
I'm talking about really dark stuff. I'm talking about
eugenics.
I'm talking about Monsters Inc. stuff. You know, where the monsters go in and they scare the kids. Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Scare the kids, take their blood, use their blood because it's filled with adrenaline. Yeah. That kind of scary stuff. You know.
You've lost me. You've lost me there.
Research adrenochrome.
I don't know where you're getting that from. Like you've lost me on that one, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Have a Google, have a look and see.
Also, when you
there's
start
more to it though. There's also
like
there's a removal of organs. People are being found dead everywhere with the removal of organs, particularly melanated people.
Whether you believe it or not, there's been a lot of evidence to suggest that these elites are involved in some satanic rituals, you know. Like you can laugh it off if you want, but
you got to believe in Satan you got to believe in Satan and magic to be able to sort of think that satanic rituals are going to be able to do anything or have any effect on anything. Maybe they're like what's the Owl Club in America? I mean, they like to get together and stand up together and
Bohemian Grove. Bohemian Grove.
I mean, what effect does that have?
But isn't it a bit crazy how it's only presidents, master doctors, big time celebrities, big influencers? It's not everyday Joe like me and you. So why are they not allowed in? Journalists are not even allowed in.
Have you seen John
So
Ronson?
if there's freedom of the press, why are journalists not allowed in?
Have you seen John Ronson going to the what's it called, the Bohemian Grove? Because he'll tell you straight.
Is this the guy that's on the camera?
It's a bunch of.
Can I just ask something? Though?
It's a bunch of rich dudes. He's a journalist. He's a very, very well-known,
Yeah, we got him with the camera. Yeah, I remember this.
And
why would
yeah,
many?
And he said it's just a bunch of rich dudes just hanging out. They like the pageantry.
But it's the same with Disney. Disney's got a club just for rich people and presidents. What's this all about? And we do know there's a lot of secret societies and all this shit around the world. Bro, JFK got his head licked
power of money
for this shit. Do you know what I mean? Certain people look at Prince Harry at the moment. Prince Harry's a bit funny in how Prince Harry's ducked out, yeah, because that ain't Charles' son, by the way. That motherfucker, that his mum was having extracurricular activities with that horse guy, because you know what? You know, if my son come out white, I know it's not my son. That's his son. So isn't it funny how Harry's ducked off to different soil, and now he's turning around and he's getting slaughtered in the media, by the way, at the moment. He's getting told, "Oh, you're not an authority. You're not an academic. Where's your qualifications?" He's turning around and saying, "It's not as bad as you think. It's not what they're telling you." He's ducked off to Canada, rented. But look at his major outcome, or his major, what he's spending on a year on his security. Yeah, his mum didn't get to make it off the soil. She got fucked off before that. So I don't think, this thing going on, yeah. If you play to the narrative and
of course,
if the BBC is your truth and then you say that's truth and that's the end, then poor you, man, because all media is controlled. It's seeded. When you have one man, Rupert Murdoch, controlling like, what is it, 97% of all media. So if I pay you as a big time guy and say, yo, trash talk that guy, trash talk Jeremy. Remember that. Trash talk Jeremy, and everyone slaughtered him. All the media slaughtered him. Why? Because it's easy to plant the seed if one man owns this elite dude.
Of course.
And it happens, bro. But you cannot tell me these guys have not got narcissistic, psychotic. Fucking. They see us as ants. One day there will be a super poor and a super rich, bro. And you know what? We're gonna sleepwalk into this. We're gonna sleepwalk right into it. Do you know what I mean? So it is what it is.
There's one important point. There's one important point, Sean. One important point is that yes, there are things going on, but not everything that you suspect is going on is going on.
I understand that. But then sometimes what you think is going on is 100 times worse than what you think is going on.
Truth is a lot.
Bro, there's an equal reaction to every. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes when you think, oh, it's not that bad, bro, it's fucking going off. And sometimes you are wrong. And this is why we said before, it's all opinion. You have to leave room for error, or you are a tinfoil. Do you know what I mean? You can't.
Yeah.
But there have got to be some kind of fact. I understand that, Jacob, and I know you run off facts and that. So You know what I mean? So I do understand that. I'm not disagreeing, but I just do think at the top there's people that have these tendencies.
Something that Jacob said earlier, I want everyone to address is he was saying making it actionable, innit? So one of the things that, you know, so there's not much you can do, innit? What actions can you take?
Well, I'll tell you what, Guy Fawkes, yeah, we still burn him. We still burn him today. That was the last guy that tried to take some action. We burn him as an effigy to let you know we fuck with the system. We burn your clout, you know. Eh?
I feel like if we're taking action, then we need to think about our ability to have an internal navigation. We do actually have that. And collectively, we're a lot stronger, you know, than being divisive and trying to break through these kind of conspiracy theories, understanding that something is going on, you know. If we can all agree that something's going on, we're getting somewhere, you know, because actually at this point, I feel like science is playing God. And we need to kind of address that. We the people are giving the power away, you know, and people who wholeheartedly believe in the science and can't follow the money are kind of part of the issue, really, because we've got to look at where the money's coming from to fund these things. You really genuinely believe that your government cares about you?
I don't care. I don't believe the government cares about me. I've never believed that. Yeah, but this is my thing coming back to the 5G and why I was talking about it online and all of that. Is people like I fucking believe loads of conspiracy theories, especially growing up, etc. I don't even like the word conspiracy, etc. Yeah. Like I think sometimes these things are planted. If there's something else that is going on, sometimes we're actually given the kind of like these kind of stories, and then like yesterday it was reported by the BBC that the 5G story is the biggest misinformation that's being shared at the moment. So they want us sharing that all day if they've got something else going on. They want us sharing
like red herring.
And then if we're talking about taking action, people are taking action, going out and burning stuff in the street and causing like they're doing nonsense. While in the meantime, like there's like laws getting put through taking away our human rights. So I think a lot of it's a distraction, and we've got to be very careful.
You're 100% right, bruv. Yeah, and all this stuff, yeah, is like getting caught in some fantastical theories and shit, like Satanist and all this fucking tinfoil shit, bruv. Like I swear down, I need my hat again, bruv. Like I need to go and get that shit back, bruv. Like, but really, it's a lot simpler. They're trying to take. The government will do certain things to try and take your rights away to make it easier for them to make more money, to line their pockets so they retire with a nice fat fund of overseas money. It's that simple. You going with all this fucking crazy shit is mad.
I don't think this thing was done to do that, but we're in this situation.
Nah,
so they're going to be sitting.
They capitalize on it. We live in a capitalist society. We live in a capitalist society, so they're going to capitalize on situations.
They were waiting for this to happen so that they could roll it out. Do you know what I mean?
Nah, I don't think they're waiting for it to happen. I think when things happen, they capitalize on it. So say there's a global
they're waiting
pandemic.
For any opportunity, I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. But thinking about Molech and all this fucking Baphomet and all that, that's just going into a different realm, bro. Like
in Grove and all that.
Okay, so
can I add one thing? Yeah, you know, something. I think is it Ben? He said it before, and I was gonna say it. Yeah. Is it billionaire? He said a billionaire something. Bill Gates. He was talking about Bill Gates, yeah. So billionaire philanthropist. That's what he is supposedly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an oxymoron. So is like so is like capitalist medicine.
That's what I was thinking. He's a ruthless businessman, but now suddenly.
I'm not an expert on either side, like conspiracies or the 5G technical side. Sorry to cut you, man. But I know, like, I don't know your names, man. Fucking, someone said it's very simple. It is. It's simple as in actions. You got to look at actions and forget the magic of language, because the language is magic. That's how you run game on people in normal life, no?
Absolutely.
Having a charity. Having a charitable foundation.
So you need to look at actions, and you can't look at statistics and You need to just see what's actually happening. How can you be spending so much money on technological research, but there's people who ain't got water and bread, bro, the most basic food? Like, it doesn't make sense.
How can you go into Africa with a vaccine and no food?
Exactly. How can you try it in Africa?
But
you can't try. Let's try putting food in there and clean water.
And think about one more thing. Can I say one more thing, please? And one more thing, yeah, because you were saying before about is it Jacob? Like, you're not sure if you believe Bill Gates is like being righteous and really trying to help people, whatever. I don't know either way. No one can know what's in anyone's head. Most people don't even know what's in their own head, really. Do you know what I mean? But
all I know is that having a charitable foundation is a massive tax write-off. It's a huge tax write-off. So if he can write off 40, 50 billion in
let me finish one second.
to the poor through his foundation.
My point is, yeah, the proof is not on either side. Like, just as much as the conspiracy theorists have to prove themselves, the coincidence theorists have to prove themselves too. That's not a default.
Nah,
I'm neither side. I'm neither side. Do you know what I mean?
This guy's dropping truth bombs, yeah. But at the end of the day, the burden of proof.
Elon Musk, not one person.
Let me just say something on that quickly, what man was saying, yeah, because at the end of the day, the burden of proof is on everyone. But with some things, we know for a fact that they're true. And I'm not saying everything Jacob said is true, or everyone, and all of us have spoke some shit in here, even me, you get me? But at the end of the day, the burden of proof is on everyone. But more often than not, with genuine science, it sort of irons out itself. Like, and I'm not talking about capitalist science or pharmaceutical companies or whatever.
Can I, like, but you know, you said before you was talking about science, yeah? You know, science, they always say it's discovery.
No, science doesn't always say nothing. Like, scientists say stuff.
Yeah, it's a discovery, right? Nothing is ever created in science. You were saying science.
You can create stuff in science. You can. Yeah, you can create stuff in science. That's how we've got computers.
Discover everything. No.
No.
Everything is there. Everything is there for you. Like to put together. It's like when you buy a puzzle, you don't make the puzzle. All the pieces are there. Like everything is there by whatever you believe. The creator, the universe, the da 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 da. Do you get what I mean?
That's
like,
right.
So they're not creating anything.
Physics is
so
physics and has
my
been.
My point is, they go on like they have more control than they do. When they don't, they're just stumbling in the dark. That's what they're doing.
100%.
And you can't be doing that, and there's people starving in the world.
Absolutely.
You get what I mean?
This is where I'm leaning into this idea that
we're running before we're crawling. We're flying. We're flying, man. We're fucking flying, and there's people starving.
Yeah. We need to lean so deeply into our internal navigation as human beings. And when I say
there is no, we're not human anymore, though. You know,
bro, let us speak, man. Let us speak.
Sorry.
Yeah,
we're sitting here silent because I'm my fucking mic won't working, man. Sorry.
He wants to go in. He wants to go in. He wants to go in.
We need to lean into our internal navigation because we do definitely have all the things that we need within us, regardless of what anyone else says, you know. And actually, spirituality is what's missing from this entire thing. It seems that Western science has come in and run over spirituality. And I don't mean religion when I say that. I mean that there's a force within us, an intelligence. And we need to access that. We're not. We're so busy outwardly doing stuff that we're not internalizing enough. But we do have the answers.
Yeah, but that's how we can figure things out, by looking internally. I agree with you there, but there's also Neil deGrasse Tyson said something which always stuck with me. Yeah, he said that the reason we don't use our senses in science, yeah, and people confuse the word science with like some sort of predetermined knowledge that we want to have. Like, no, our senses are flawed. That's why we don't use our senses in science. We try and use calculations because the language of the universe is maths. Like, and a lot of religion, if we go back to Islamic universities from thousands of years ago, they use maths. The same things we use till this day. Do you see what I'm saying?
Like, you know, like I was saying in the beginning when I started talking, that we are trying to quantify everything. We need numbers, we need results, we need facts, we need to be sure of things. But actually, on this journey, there's very little that you're sure of other than the fact that you're going to die, you know? And we have to be aware of that. However it happens, so be it. But we're not.
You're right. I agree with you. I agree with you, Sarah. Yeah, but there are. So science has a place, just as our internal dialogue or whatever you want to call it has its place in the world. You know what I mean? But science definitely has a place, and to just dismiss that is just as bad as just believing it without consequence. Do you see what I mean? You have to take everything with a pinch of salt, and if you can prove something, then you can prove something. If you can't,
it's not a dismissal of
skepticism
science.
is healthy, is my point. But
it's not a dismissal of science at all. It's an acceptance of science, but with the quantitative data, you also have to have qualitative. That's it, basically. There has to be a balance. It cannot be one and not the other. And unfortunately, this Western world is led by numbers, you know, and if we follow the money, we'll find the perpetrators. That's just the way it goes.
I think there are.
I'm gonna have to kind of wrap it up. So.
You can't talk about science and spirituality in the same sentence. If anything, science.
Why not? What? Why not?
I feel like science.
Not modern science, anyway.
Wait there. Yo, you man, bro.
Nova's wrapping up.
No, I'm saying if you talk about science, you try and say it's the Big Bang. It's everything that disproves God. In my opinion, sorry guys, I'm not saying.
Science says it doesn't know whether God exists or not. That's what science says. It doesn't disprove it. It doesn't prove it.
I feel like
the greatest discovery in science would be finding that God exists. That would be the great, and all scientists say that. But
completely different.
Everything that they say is a miracle from God. Science tries to prove it. It's gravity. It's this. It's magnetism. It's not from God.
The biggest issue, the biggest downfall of science is the idea that you must disprove something for it to exist. That's the biggest downfall.
Who said that?
I said I don't believe in God personally.
It's beyond that. This is talking about an intelligence within yourself.
Can I
internal navigation? That's what it is. It's not talking about God. It's talking about an intelligence that lives within you, that exists in a plant outside, that exists in the tree, that exists in your food.
I believe in it. Connect.
The whole thing about God that has been misconstrued, I think, is that you think of it as being a single being or some kind of one thing. It's not that. It can be interpreted in one thing.
Right, we got deep. That's why
let me just talk. I don't know how this.
What do you say? I just want to say one thing.
Let Nova talk. Let Nova talk.
Yo, we can do a whole show on God.
Let's do the God show next.
Now we gotta do the Labour show next. Labour show's next.
Yeah, I want to do a Labour show, and I want to do
I'm down with
that. Just the government response specifically to this. You know, just touched on maybe that how they responded and what they're trying to get out of it. But there's probably a lot we can talk about on government responses here and all over the place. So we kind of do have to wrap it up. If anyone has specific things they want to kind of run.
Hello, auntie, to Lishon's people, you get me?
Can I just say one thing to end off on what you guys were saying, what you were saying about God and that, I think God, is like, you know, you got good and evil, like you've got duality, I think God is karma, which is the space in between each. Do you get what I mean?
Okay, I can hear that.
And good is God, and evil is the devil. But
evil, I didn't necessarily
evil is not an actual thing. It's like dark matter. It's the absence of light. It's not darkness that's coming in and pushing light away. When someone's evil, it's just they're empty. They're empty because they got a mental illness. All the world's problems can be.
Can I leave on a proper one?
Evil
is something relative.
Evil is the absence of peace and the absence of pleasure.
I've got something relevant to the original video. I just want everyone to leave. Any conspiracy theorist, do not wear a tinfoil hat unless you connect it to ground. Based on absorption and emission. Remember, tinfoil is a conductor. What you're actually doing is
but you know what that is the street. That is what they would say anyway, innit?
You need a tail running down the back to ground, and it disperses it like a Faraday cage.
A rubber hat would do it.
True story, bro.
That is a perfect note to leave it, man.
Bless up, man. I'm out. To the next time.
Easy.
Sir.